Greetings, my friends, music lovers, thrill seekers, conversationalists across the fruited plain. Welcome back. I am your host, Rush Limball, El Rushbo, America's real anchorman, America's truth detector, translator of gobbledygook BS, and doctor of democracy, all combined in one harmless, lovable little fuzzball. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Executing everything I do flawlessly with zero mistakes, doing this show with half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. Rush Limball. A man, a myth, legend, way of life. For those of you just tuning in, we're observing the habit the left has of inserting politics into anything they think is comedy. Watching good stand-up comics dropping like flies as they shift into lecture mode, or submitting their acts for wife approval. An audience laughing at your jokes is stand-up comedy. An audience clapping at your observations is a lecture. Not since the years of George W. Bush have we seen the one single low-hanging fruit joke from the losing team on their corporate networks non-stop that already wasn't funny after the 10th time, let alone the 1,000th time. Some of you may be too young to remember, others old enough to have suffered through it. They had two sitcoms based on how stupid George Bush was. Or W was. That was the nickname they gave him to remind you he wasn't his father, and that he was an idiot hillbilly as often as they could. Every joke on every late-night show was how stupid W was. Will Ferrell made a tour as the character he did every week on SNL, and Snerbley, can you guess what the joke was for that character every week that required a tour? Yes, the joke was how stupid George Bush was. They all skimmed over Obama for 8 years and made him the cool guy uncle in any skit they did make. As if a black Dean Martin was our president, puffing on a smoke while drone-striking citizens without trials and unconstitutionally destroying the American healthcare system. And then they put up Hillary Clinton, and were in shock that the most unpopular politician to ever politic ever lost. Instead of introspection, they dug their heels in and turned the left-wing culture cannon back on. We got entire seasons of South Park where Mr. Garrison runs for president as Trump. Saturday Night Live breathed some life into the corpse of Alec Baldwin to play Trump every week. And they went back to the other playbook they knew. Run the same low-hanging fruit into the ground. Biden was, hands down, the most incompetent punchline since Jimmy Carter, with a huge dose of massive corruption spread across the whole entire thing. But shows known for political humor didn't touch him. Or Obama. They say if you listen, people will tell you who they are. I think it's also in the silence that's very telling. Not one episode or skit about Biden being so old he can't hold up a bicycle or use any set of functioning stairs. Remember, folks, this was also Saturday Night Live that had Chevy Chase doing a repeat caricature of Ford that fell over everything. He didn't even bother with a costume to look like him. It was just Chevy Chase saying he was Ford and he would fall over a stool or a table or what have you. So often, it became the memory of Ford to people. Some klutz that couldn't navigate furniture. And it stuck. They know what they're doing. Remember the scene in Natural Born Killers where Robert Downey Jr.'s producer argues with his video editor? Repetition works, David. They even show the clip twice as another rib at it. They don't want to contribute to the diminished legacy of one of their own in the same way. SNL, to quote the legendary punk band The Lunatics, putting the turd in Saturday. Not one episode or skit about Biden being so incompetent that he stares off into the void when the teleprompter goes out. Or how he literally says things like, I have 3 letters for you, and then says jobs. Not one episode or skit about Biden so corrupt he admits on video to having a foreign DA fired that was looking into his son's corruption in the Ukraine. And Biden was using Obama's name as some kind of name-drop enforcement thuggery, and used our tax dollars as the blackmail to withhold the funds from him. And he bragged to the reporters about how the guy was fired, admitting to the very criminality that they impeached Trump for. Not even one episode or skit about his insane made-up stories. Cannibals ate his uncle, little black kids rubbing his leg hairs at the pool. They could have done a whole series about these alone. But remember, folks, the corn pop and the razors at the local pool wasn't comedy enough for Comedy Central or Saturday Night Live. Not one episode or skit about Hunter Biden. The crack and hooker bragging corrupt know-nothing son that was put on the board of a Ukraine energy company without any background in energy? A laptop of selfies with crack pipes, crack, and hookers? No. Dead air until Trump won, and they were back to the same jokes that were already exhausted in 2016, 8 years ago. They're finding out you can't be the edgy hip comedy show you think you are when you're just shills for one team and we can all see right through you. So Trump won, they lost their minds, and continued to really go off the rails, to the point where even all the late night and stand-up comics joined in. Doesn't that sound like a fun night out? You work all week, you and the spouse. You take a little saved money and hire a babysitter and hit the town. You stop for dinner and the waitress that looks like Danny DeVito in a blue wig feels the need to tell you all about how Trump is an evil fascist. So you go to the stand-up comedy show and there are 6 performers. The first guy comes out and does 15 minutes about how Trump is an evil fascist. Then the next one. But he's expecting you to sincerely laugh at the same joke you've already heard for the last 15 minutes. One after the other, they come out and do their 15 minutes about how Trump is an evil fascist. To quote Adam Carolla, it would be ridiculous. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty to make fun of about Trump, but they'll never figure out any of it. They can't help themselves. They think they're the trailblazers, while none of it's creative or original. So now you get home and turn on the TV. The late night comedy host is telling you about how Trump is an evil fascist and literally crying about it. And they don't see any problems ramping it up to that level because the internet and their party propaganda has them brainwashed into thinking it's always 1939 and they're the French resistance. The other side is the advancing German army and must be destroyed at any means. They dehumanize us at every turn, then scream that you can't dehumanize them. They're riling their low IQ voters to engage in deadly warfare against the US government that you know damn well the ones gassing everyone up won't be in the streets with them. They'll be behind their gates and security while you die for the cause. They're all making it very clear that their message is more important than your entertainment if you give them your attention. Miserable, untalented, uncreative, unfunny. This is why uncensored comedy is on the independent rise again. No one wants to be told they can't say an offensive joke. That's why comedy movies are dead. Uncreative, hateful people are in charge of creative entertainment. Back after this.